remarks and introductions, I'll turn the call over to Lou D'Amelio. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Blake, and thanks everyone for joining us today. As you all know, the UFC comes to Fox in a pretty big way on Saturday night, November 12th, with the UFC Heavyweight Championship of the World between Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos. Our coverage begins with a 2-hour preview and red carpet special on Fuel TV, co-hosted by Jay Glazer and Kenny Florian from 7 to 9 Eastern. And we shift over to Fox for the main event of the evening at 9 p.m., a 1-hour show hosted by Kurt Menefee, UFC President Dana White, and former UFC Heavyweight Champion Brock Lesnar. We also have coverage being provided in Spanish on Fox Deportes, coverage on Fox Sports Radio and FoxSports.com. Press release about all our coverage details went out last week. If anyone needs it, they can call our office in New York, and we'll be happy to send it. The panel that we have assembled today to preview the event and our coverage as well is as follows. From the UFC, co-founder and CEO Lorenzo Fertitta and Dana White. From Fox, we have Fox Sports Media Group Chairman David Hill, Co-President and COO Eric Shanks, and the Executive Vice President and General Manager of Fuel TV, George Greenberg. Blake, let's go right into questions.
If you would like to ask a question, you can go ahead and press star and then 1 on your telephone. If you need to withdraw your question at any time for any reason, you can press the pound key. Once again, please press star and then 1 on your telephone to ask a question. And I'll pause for just a few moments here to give everyone an opportunity. It looks like our first comes from the site of Maury Brown from Variety. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this question's for Dana. You know, Dana, how important is it to UFC that this deal with Fox is kind of multi-platform across the various channels? And as a follow-up, on airing the championship fight on broadcast television, I mean, does this really validate that UFC is ready for prime time?
Yeah, it's very important for us to be on all these platforms. First of all, just being with Fox. When you think about how big the UFC has gotten in the last 10 years, we've never even been on a sports network, and let alone be on the biggest and most watched network in the country. And when you say that we're going to do 4 fights a year on Big Fox, 6 on FX, The Ultimate Fighter live on FX, and then we have so much incredible programming that we're putting on Fuel. If you are a UFC fan, you can't not have Fuel. We're going to have live fights from other countries. We're going to have tons of great programming. And then the second question, what was it? The fact that we're on now?
Yeah, do you feel like this is validates that UFC is ready for prime time? I mean, going on broadcast television like this, I mean, it's got to kind of be a watershed moment for you guys.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's definitely a great moment. There's been a ton of milestones in our 10 years with the UFC, and this is definitely the biggest. And yes, the answer is yes, we are ready for prime time, and we're going to show everybody on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's a follow-up. This is for David Hill. David, you know, there's likely to be some backlash, you know, given the violence of MMA, you know, to broadcast television. You know, I mean, this is kind of coming with the territory. How is Fox going to determine whether there's an increase in UFC's visibility, if at all, if there's some kind of loud chorus of discontent from viewers?
I don't think there's going to be any backlash at all. I think that what's happened, if you look at the popularity of the sport and its dramatic growth, not only here but right around the world, that I think that it's moved from a niche to a mainstream, which was why we were so pleased that we were able to work with Lorenzo and Frank and Dana to put this together. I'm not expecting any backlash whatsoever.
Will there be any viewer discretion advised or anything like that before it, or are you just going to treat this like any kind of other sport?
Very, very definitely. We'll be advising America not to try this at home.
Good advice. Good advice. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
And you know what, real quick, just to jump in there, too, the other thing about this sport, when you say the backlash of it being on Fox and in prime time, we're regulated by the athletic commissions, just like boxing is. You know, we're actually one of the us and boxing are the most regulated sport in the world. And, you know, we have the proper medical attention, the proper, you know, everything is regulated by the government. So there should be absolute. Listen, it's either you like combat sports or you don't. If you like it, watch it. If you don't.
Great answer. Thanks, guys.
And once again, it is star and 1 to ask a question. Next, we'll go to the side of Jim Williams. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. This is for Eric and David. You've got the Fuel TV situation, you've got Fox Radio, you've got Fox Television all going at the same time on this project. Is this, from your standpoint, one of the biggest events, launches that you've ever done in Fox Sports history?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and 10 out of 10 for being observant. That we fully believe that as television evolves and sports television evolves, that it has to be a multi-platform thing. So that the involvement that we've got, everything from FoxSports.com, Fox Sports Radio, Fuel, the way this will be handled on Fox Deportes, the number one Spanish language sports network in the country, right through to the network, the number one network in the country. That we're finding our way. There's no guidebook for what we're doing. We're ad-libbing this through. So it's kind of like, Eric and Randy I'm sitting back in amazement and watching what Mr. Freer and Mr. Shanks are handling this and weaving it together. But I got to tell you, it looks like a pretty good tapestry to me from the way things are going. But yeah, and by the way, that's you're the first journalist to have figured out we're working this on a vertical and horizontal level.
Sometimes you get lucky, Ed. Meaning me, not you. Yeah.
And once again, it's star and one if you'd like to ask a question. Next, we'll go to the side of Brian Cantor. Please go ahead.
How's it going, everybody? So I actually want to address a recent comments that came out regarding the plan not being to air any of the undercard fights on the broadcast, no matter how long the main event goes. Is that still the case? And if so, would any of you be able to talk us through that decision?
You want me to take that, David?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So basically what happened is when we figured, understand this too, our deal doesn't start with Fox until January. Our deal doesn't start till January, but in our deal that we have now, we can always do network television. So these guys came to us and said, hey, how about we kick this thing off and we do a big fight to say, hey, the UFC is on Fox. So we sat down and talked, and the thing is, the whole premise of being back on television, on network TV, when I was growing up, I was a huge boxing fan. I used to watch ABC's Wide World of Sports. The big fights were on, and then USA's Tuesday night fights when I was about 19. Well, after the pay-per-view model, they never put big fights on free TV anymore. Well, we're not only bringing big fights back to TV, we're bringing the heavyweight championship of the world. And basically what David Hill said was, listen, we're going to go out with your best foot forward, put the biggest fight on, and that's what it's going to be about. It's going to be about the heavyweight championship of the world, just like Ali, Frazier, and all the big fights that happened, back in the glory days of boxing. So this thing is built. We can do all the bells and whistles around this thing, but that night it's about the heavyweight championship of the world. Whether this thing goes, we went with this fight because it's going to be very exciting. So we can control everything except what happens when those guys get in there. This thing could go a minute. It could go 25 minutes. We don't know. But the focus is the heavyweight championship of the world.
Great, man. Also, from a presentation standpoint, obviously you're trying to attract a lot of new fans this weekend. So I'm wondering what kind of knowledge base you're going to presume of the audience. Are we going to see a lot of intro videos? Is Mike Goldberg going to say what jiu-jitsu is? Or are you going to kind of broadcast this the way you would any other major UFC fight?
No, this thing's going to be different. Now that it is on Fox and we know that we're speaking to a wider, broader audience that doesn't know a lot about mixed martial arts and has probably never even seen the UFC before. So there's going to be storytelling. There's going to be some explaining on who we are, what this is, what these athletes are about. There's definitely going to be some breakdowns and a lot of explanations, more than you would see on a typical UFC event.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And our next question comes from John Morgan. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. If I could start with Dana, please. Dana, you teased some possible live events on Fuel next year. Is that in relation to the international version of The Ultimate Fighter, or are you talking about fight night events as well?
There's going to be a ton of live fights, from actual fight nights to yes, possible Ultimate Fighters from other countries. I'm still waiting. Everything's moving so fast, and those of you that know and have been following, I haven't cared about anything except this fight on Fox. The only thing I'm focused on. The only thing I care about is getting this thing done. And then we need to sit down with George Greenberg and his crew and kind of walk through, what the schedule is and what the plans are, which I think are going to be even bigger than George and his team realize. We're going to have a ton of great fights. That's the thing about why I'm talking about Fuel. It's this. We're not just talking taped events. We're talking there's going to be a ton of live fights on Fuel. You're not going to be able to not have Fuel if you're a UFC fan.
Hey guys, this is George Greenberg. In general, about 25% of our programming pie will be devoted to the UFC. We're going to have over north of 2,000 hours, and we'll have a lot of the key shoulder programming. In fact, all of it for live TV from the UFC and any other network. And as far as our presentation, getting back to the question before, we're not going to assume anything. We're going to talk to junkies. We're going to talk to new people. We're going to talk to the casual fan. But at the end of the day, we're going to make sure this experience, whether they've seen it before or they haven't seen it before, is an introduction to a new sport that is absolutely, in the last 10 years, off the map.
Great. Thank you. If I could follow up on that, maybe Mr. Greenberg, maybe the Fox executive, can you talk about the decision to put all the programming surrounding this weekend's fight on Fuel TV versus FX? Obviously, FX has a much larger distribution. It would seem like you'd be able to reach more eyes that way. Can you talk about the decision, maybe why it's going to be on Fuel?
I'll let Eric Shanks handle it. I can talk about what we have. Basically, 2 hours of pregame, and we're doing a 1 hour postgame. And this is UFC everywhere. It's for people that want it now, want it on any platform. They're going to be able to get it from us. Push to radio. We're going to push the fights that are going to be going on back of us at the same time. For us, this is a great entree for 2 hours pre and 2 hours post that drives to the sandwich in the middle, which is the heavyweight championship of the world. I think Eric can talk more about the strategy of why FX isn't picking it up.
Yeah, John, I mean, look, it's pretty obvious that, we need to introduce the world to the UFC on Fuel as well. I mean, we need to let people know that Fuel is going to be one of the Fox homes of the UFC. FX, FX is completely 100% distributed, and people know what it is. And once we get the Ultimate Fighter and these 6 fights going, people are going to find that no matter what. But, obviously, it's a coming out party for the UFC on Fox, and it's a coming out party for Fuel doing the UFC as well. So it's a way to raise awareness for Fuel.
Great, thank you. Just one final question, if I could. Obviously, Dana mentioned that this isn't, the real deal. This is kind of a teaser to the deal. But with that said, are ratings important for this weekend? Is there a success or failure that can be attached to what happens with the fight this weekend, or is this just more about the introduction of the product and it's too early to make that evaluation?
Obviously, we're expecting a big figure that when we ran an program for the UFC the other Sunday afternoon, it was the top-rated UFC event on television ever. So, we're looking forward to pretty healthy numbers tomorrow night, on Saturday night.
It's very important to me. Very important to me.
I was going to say, Dan, any predictions from you?
No, I have no predictions, but it's important. I'm hoping for a big one.
One of the things you never, ever, ratings gods raise their eyebrows. Never say a word. We are looking forward to good ratings, and that's it.
I'm looking for good ratings.
Great. Thank you all, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Next, we'll go to the side of Jason Dockman. Please go ahead.
Yeah, a quick question for Eric. I know UFC is retaining a lot of the production responsibilities for this weekend. Can you get into just a little sort of broad details about how you guys are sharing some of the production responsibilities, both for the fight itself as well as all the shoulder programming?
Sure, and then Dana can chime in too from his perspective. I would say that the outside world has been making a much bigger deal about it than we have. Fox has never done UFC fights before. Obviously, Dana and his production guys, Craig Bersari and Goldberg and Joe Rogan, they're the best in the world, and they've been doing it a long time. So there's no way that we could think that we could come in and cover the fight and describe the fight and have talent better than what they have. We've obviously, worked together on kind of the rundown for the night, making sure that, Fox's, what Fox can bring to the table is kind of the perspective of a broadcast audience, and just making sure that we kind of set the tone right before the fight starts. But it has been nothing but, as if we were, in the same company, on the same production team. So it's been a much bigger deal with everybody asking those questions than what the practical reality has been.
It has been kumbaya since moment one.
Yeah, I could not agree more. This has been an amazing working partnership. These guys are the best at what they do in sports. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. David Hill has revolutionized football, baseball, NASCAR, et cetera, et cetera. We'd be crazy not to want their input into our production and what we do. And we're the best in the world at putting on fights and bringing the excitement of a live fight to television. That nobody in the business does it better than we do.
Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we'll take a question from Stephen Morocco. Please go ahead.
A question starting with David and Eric. This is a 1 hour broadcast time for the first big Fox show. Typically, a major UFC pay-per-view is a 3 hour time slot. I'm wondering if you guys have any idea about how future cards will be run in terms of broadcast time, the length of the show, how many fights there, and stuff like that, or are you guys just doing this show and kind of figuring it out?
Shanksy?
We definitely think that the future broadcasts are going to be longer. I think, talking to UFC guys, Dana and Lorenzo, and then also talking to our own affiliates, we believe that probably the sweet spot for broadcast is an hour and a half. It'll let you get in 2, maybe 3 fights. Not every fight that's going to be on Fox is going to be a championship fight. Even though I've told Dana and Lorenzo we wouldn't mind if every fight was a championship fight. But we think the sweet spot is probably an hour and a half leading into our performance on Fox, and hopefully, that will end up being the sweet spot. We just wanted to make sure that we put the spotlight 100% on the heavyweight championship of the world. It's the first time a heavyweight championship's been on broadcast television, I think, in like 85, 95, 26 years or something like that. So it's an incredible night, and we just want to make sure that we have the time to tell the story about this one particular fight. But going forward, you can look forward to longer fight nights on Fox.
Hey guys, it's George Greenberg. The FX format will be 2 hours, and Fuel will be 3 hours. So depending upon what broadcast entity gets it, the time will expand or recording inappropriately.
And Dana, I know you're focused on this event this weekend, but going forward, does an hour and a half? How does that sit with you? And would that change the format of a major event?
No, I think this thing is a work in progress. To figure out how to pull this thing off on network TV, make it work for them, make it work for us and the fans. We got to figure this thing out. But we will. We're going to get this first one behind us, and then the deal doesn't start till January, so we got plenty of time to get in there and figure this whole thing out. Listen, no matter what, we're going to deliver. We're on Fox, the biggest, baddest network in the country, and these fights are going to be free. Whether there's one fight or there's 12 fights, it's free. You're going to have a big free fight on Fox. We couldn't ask for anything more. This is like a dream come true. So no matter how many fights it is, it's a damn good thing.
This is Lorenzo. It's going to be seamless to the people that are in the arena. It's going to be just like a pay-per-view. The fights the prelims, the main bout, everything will continue to roll as we're also doing international feeds around the world. This is a worldwide event. So to expand it from an hour to an hour and a half or 3 hours is very simple.
Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And once again, please press star and 1 on your telephone if you have a question. Next, we'll go to Brian Cantor from Headline Planet. Please go ahead.
Sorry, just another follow-up, guys. So thinking back to the press conference when UFC and Fox first announced the deal, I know David and everyone was very adamant that this should be viewed as a partnership and not just a generic TV licensing deal. So with that in mind, I imagine Fox has a lot of vested interest in seeing UFC succeed. How much promotion is going to go into the actual pay-per-views on this week's special? I know you have Henderson Shogun the week after. Are we going to see hype for that, or is it all just about Kane and Jr.?
Yeah, you want me to take basically the way that this fight's going to work is we've got this is focused on the heavyweight championship. The heavyweight championship Saturday night between Kane and Junior Dos Santos. So the thing that makes sense is we actually, we're not going to be talking about the Shogun fight stuff. What we're going to be talking about is Alistair Overeem and Brock Lesnar. Alistair Overeem will be there. Brock Lesnar is actually going to be one of the analysts on the show, breaking down the fight. He fought Cain Velasquez for the title, and he was supposed to fight and was getting ready for Junior Dos Santos. So his opinion is interesting. Alistair is going to be there. This show is going to focus on the heavyweights and the heavyweight championship.
Thanks again.
Yep.
And once again, it's star and one to ask a question. Next, we'll go to Dave Metzer from Yahoo Sports. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is for Dana and also for Dave Hill. When it comes to the ratings, I mean, are you guys is the number that you're going to look at? Is it going to be primarily the 18 to 34 number, the 18 to 49 number, or the overall household numbers? Like this being sold kind of like as a target to male adults, or are you looking more for a broad-based type of number?
We look at everything. We look at all demos. We're looking at male versus female. We look at 18 to 34. We look at 18 to 48. And we look at total households. It's in terms of television and sports, this is a watershed. It's never happened before. This is the first time that a UFC heavyweight championship is going on live television. We don't know. We have aspirations and we have hopes, but as I said before, that in terms of any conversations that we have in public, I've always stuck by the guns that you never rattle the cages of the rating gods. So we're expecting to be pleasantly surprised Sunday morning.
Okay. And as far as like the schedule for next year, as far as the number of fights on Fox, the number on FX, the number on Fuel, is there any kind of, Dana, is there kind of like a roundabout number that you've got, like, okay, we're going to do 4 on this, 6 on this type of thing, or is it kind of a work in progress, so to speak?
What do you mean? As far as the number of fights we're going to do on the different Fox platforms?
Yeah, the number of live fights that you're going to do on the different networks.
Yeah, well, no, the deal is we got 4 on Fox, we got 6 on FX, the Ultimate Fighter on FX, and then, George said earlier how much programming we're doing on Fuel, but I have a funny feeling that number's going to go up. There's going to be more free fights on Fuel. There's going to be a ton of live fight programming on Fuel.
Now, what's the status as far as like the prelims? Is that going to stay like on Facebook, or are you going to do a lot?
No,
when
this deal starts in January. Every live fight, no matter what it is, no matter what, all goes to Fox. And there's some prelims going to FX, and some going to Fuel. So it's going to depend. But every live fight will be on a Fox platform.
So let's just say the February pay-per-view from Vegas. Is the idea to have like the early prelims on Fuel, then like an hour on FX, and then the pay-per-view?
Exactly.
Okay, so kind of like FX would be like where Spike was, and Fuel would be like where the Facebook fights were?
No, the exact opposite. Fuel would be like the Facebook fight started earlier, and then the later ones would be FX that would lead into the pay-per-view.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks.
Listen, if I can speak on behalf of Johnny Landgraf, who runs FX, I think that the one hidden gem in this is the Ultimate Fighter. In terms of reality television, I think that Pilgrim Films does a fabulous job of making this for the UFC, and I can see that the format that Dana and Mr. Landgraf have sorted out, that everyone is going to start taking notice of this, and it's not just going to be UFC fans. I think that the way that it's made and put together, and the plans for it, that I think that this is going to do more to spread the gospel of UFC than anything. And I think in everything that we've agreed to do, that the Ultimate Fighter for me is the most exciting area of development.
It looks like our next question comes from the side of Maury Brown from Variety. Please go ahead.
Yeah, as a follow-up, I guess this would be for David or for Eric. How are you guys going to promote across different sports programming after this heavyweight fight? I mean, you got up until January. You got a lot of time to go ahead and kind of, seed the ground, as it were, for this launch. How are you guys going to promote across different sports programming?
Well, it's the way we do business. That that UFC will be is part of what we're offering America, and we will promote it. And we have other things that we need to promote. You see what we do on a week in, week out basis, and we've managed to keep all the balls in the air, and we manage to juggle, and I think we do a fairly good job.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not to interrupt. I guess the question is, are you going to give it probably the same amount of face time that, say, the NFL or NASCAR gets, in terms of promotions? Are you going to give it more weight, or are you going to balance that all out?
We'll balance it all out. Week in, week out, we have different priorities, and we spend a heck of a lot of time every week juggling what the priorities are and what the messaging is and how we handle it. And you see the result of the deliberations every week.
And if I can jump in just from our side, in our decision-making and who we were going to go with, Fox was just such a no-brainer. I mean, these guys are the best at getting out there and letting people know what programming is on. I mean, I don't care if you haven't watched one show on FX. Everybody knows what's on FX because they do such a good job of promoting their programming. And the same thing with Fox. We don't even have a deal with Fox. We don't have a deal with Fox till January. These guys got us in the NFL. They got us in Major League Baseball in the playoffs and in the World Series. I mean, we all have had more promotion with these guys and don't even have a deal with than we've ever had in the history of the company. So it was a huge decision. That was a big part of the decision making and going with Fox. They're the best at letting people know what's on their network.
Hey, have you seen the promo we're running at the moment for this fight?
Yes.
What do you think of that?
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
That's all for me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Matthew Roth from BloodyElbow.com. Please go ahead.
This question is for George. George, you said that you're planning 2,000 hours of programming on Fuel. Is there any way that you can break that down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have at least 100 hours of live UFC programming. It sounds like Dana's going to heap a lot more. I mean, I don't know if he's negotiating now, but I'm happy to take it. But we get all the shoulder programming, whether it's Prime Time, Countdown, UFC Replay, Unleashed, Best of Annual Specials, The Ultimate Insider, Fighter Profiles. We have access to the Pride Library. Dana and I go way back, and the great thing about dealing with these guys is that they match the Fox ability for showmanship, entrepreneurial spirit, and the ability to market, and then you layer that up with a great product. For us at Fuel, this is absolutely, 2,000 hours. Love to have them all. And I think as we expose a brand new audience, and an action sports audience, which we're still going to retain, to the MMA world and the UFC world, this thing's going to explode.
Hey, listen, by the way, I got to tell you, I'm still not sure about reuniting Georgie Primetime and Dana. It's a very dangerous combination.
Yeah, just a little quick history. Dana was nice enough to give us our first telecast on the Best Damn Sports Show. Delivered 4 bang-up shows for us on Best Damn that rated higher than any Best Damn ever in the history of Best Damn. It was really quite something early in the years.
Awesome. And just a follow-up for Eric and Dana. How will you be handling the international events?
What do you mean?
Will they still be airing via tape delay, or will they be aired live?
Well, it depends. It depends on what time we go off. It depends on the market. Whatever market we're in, if we can put it on a time that it can go live. You talking about on Big Fox or on Fuel or what?
On any of the networks, on Fox, Fuel, or FX.
Yeah, well, obviously, if it's on Big Fox, we'd work it out to where it would be live. But it depends on where we're going, on the timing and everything else. That's a tough question. It depends on where we're going. But yeah, any of the ones that would be on Fox, we would definitely have airing live.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Yep.
Our next question comes from Mark Anthony from RingsideReport.com. Please go ahead.
Yeah, not a big groundbreaking question, but are you guys going to have the robots for the UFC on prime time?
Cletus is busy on Saturday night. That's his big night out.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Next, we'll go to Jim Williams from the Washington Examiner. Please go ahead.
Thanks. This is just a follow-up for David and or anyone who wants to answer it. Eric had said earlier that it's been 26 years, I think, or more, since there's been a heavyweight fight on in prime time. There's just something about the concept of a heavyweight fight that draws, sports fans. How excited, from your standpoint, is it that you have, a heavyweight fight as your first, fight kicking off the series?
Well, we're obviously stoked. And I think that we're all huge boxing fans, and I think that in a kind of a way, with the death of Joe Frazier, that it made people realize. I was talking to some guys this morning that everyone remembers, that what a great boxer and what a great competitor and the will to win that Frazier had, and those powerhouse punches and those left jabs and the left to the bodies. And then everyone started talking about the golden days of boxing and where did it go and what happened to it, and it disappeared somewhere. Is it on? Where is it now? And is there any boxing on television? And for it to be coming back on prime time with a fight like this with Cain and Junior Dos Santos, it's kind of like the dawn of a new era to me. And like, I've been around long enough, I've lived through it all, but it's just, I was just thinking this morning driving to work that the death of one of the truly greats, one of the great fighters in the history of the sport, and in that same week that it's like a phoenix coming from the ashes. So we are all truly excited on any number of levels for this.
Well, and as you say, I mean, it's such a rare situation that we get to see a heavyweight fight in prime time on a free broadcast network that, I think that there's going to be a lot of boxing fans who show up who, may not know a lot about UFC, but it's going to be a very good opportunity. I wish you well.
Well, you're right, and it's a great weekend for that, and we actually proved that. I believe that there's a bunch of boxing fans, there's a lot of UFC fans, and then there's a bigger segment of the population that actually are fight fans. And Saturday night, the same night as the Pacquiao fight, the UFC Heavyweight Championship goes off on the West Coast at 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock on the East Coast, and an hour after we go off the air, then you can watch Manny Pacquiao. So you can watch the UFC Heavyweight Championship for free, then buy the Pacquiao pay-per-view an hour later. I think it's going to be big for both of us and boxing.
Thanks very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to the site of Damon Martin from MMAWeekly.com. Please go ahead.
First question is for David and Eric. We've seen a lot of the cross-format, stuff going on. We saw Cain on the UFC with the NFL broadcast. But I'm curious, for every Jake Glazer, there's 5 Michael Wilbons out there that just don't understand the sport and just bash it for no reason. So how has the response been within the Fox teams as far as the guys with the NFL and the guys that work with NASCAR? I mean, has it been very positive all within Fox of accepting the UFC?
Eric? Shanksy?
Yes. The day that we signed the deal, people kind of knew that we were talking to the UFC ahead of time, and the day that we signed the deal, I didn't know this, but every person at Fox is a UFC fan. Every woman that works there, every man that works there, people were like high-fiving me in the hallway, thanking us for getting the deal. Every young guy, every PA, every AD, I mean, that place hasn't been more pumped in a long time than when we actually signed the deal. And I was like, whew, thank God. I didn't know there were so many UFC fans at Fox. And then the announcers, too. You're going to see Terry, Howie, and Jimmy down there at Anaheim on Saturday night. Strahan is obviously there. He's a big fight fan. Kurt's we've welcomed a new sport to the family, and we haven't done that in a decade. And like David said, everybody's just completely stoked.
And a follow-up to that, you mentioned earlier obviously the passing of Joe Frazier. Everyone talked about, and Dana's talked about this at great length, the excitement around the old days of boxing when, it was the ABC Wide World of Sports or whatever. I mean, are you guys expecting the UFC to kind of grow to those heights, where boxing once was and unfortunately has fallen off? We in the hardcore community love the UFC, but are we expecting to see it reach those same kind of heights that boxing once was in like the 70s and early 80s?
And when we signed the deal, when we had our first press conference, what we said was that what boxing was to my generation, UFC is to my sons. And I firmly believe that. And I can see within the period of this contract that the dreams that Dana and Frank and Lorenzo had for this sport are going to be fully realized. And I believe in 7 years that boxing will become even more of a niche than it is, and UFC will become mainstream.
Excellent. And last question for Dana. Dana, you always speak to the fighters before the fight. There's always, the little bit of pre-fight hype, things like this. I mean, there's been so much talk about this fight and so much pressure. I mean, will there be anything extra to say to Kanan Jr. before this fight, or are you going to try to keep it as low-key just to kind of keep the pressure on them as low as possible, because the expectations are there, but obviously they still need to go out and perform?
This is just another fight. This is just another fight on the production side and all the other stuff that we, the UFC, that we have to pull off. This is just another fight for these two. Whether we're doing this thing on Fox, on pay-per-view, we're on wherever we are, I'm going to talk to these guys just like I do to guys every Friday after the weigh-ins, and then I will not talk to them again until the press conference. I talk to them Friday after the weigh-ins just like any other fight. I'm not worried about putting any added pressure or doing anything like that. The pressure's on us. We're pulling off a show that we've never done before with our new partners that we've never worked with before. There's a lot of different moving parts and pieces to this thing. That's where the pressure is. But, yeah, I'm going to talk to these guys Friday, and then I will leave them alone until after the fight.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yep.
Next, we'll go to Mike Chiappetta from MMAWeekly.com. Please go ahead.
Hi, guys. This question is for any one of the Fox executives. With the proliferation of UFC programming on Fuel, as you said, over 2,000 hours next year, I guess, is expected, it seems like the channel's identity will become more synonymous with the UFC, and I'm wondering, is there any chance that you would eventually rebrand Fuel into the UFC channel down the line?
That's what I'm pulling for.
No, that the channel obviously Fuel will obviously undergo a metamorphosis. But it's already going that metamorphosis as soon as Georgie Primetime got down there. And, it will stay as Fuel TV.
And for us guys, it's actually, to have 25% of our programming devoted to the UFC, and we can now cherry pick, the premier action sports stuff. And believe me, guys, you're going to see live surfing that you haven't seen before in this network, and key snowboarding events. But we get to be more selective with the addition of the UFC, which has been fantastic for us.
It becomes far more hard-ass than it ever has before. That's what's going to happen to it.
Yeah, the target moves from 12 to 34 to 18 to 34, and it's a really upfront, aggressive presentation in general.
But it would be fair to say the UFC is going to be sort of the anchor programming for the foreseeable future.
It's going to be represented in prime time, and you're also going to see it in late night, and you're going to see it on the weekends and in key prime, key day part areas, and it will be the wind in our sails for sure.
Are you familiar with that great track by Metallica called Enter Sandman?
Sure I am. I'm a Yankee fan.
Okay, well, I got to tell you the theme has just moved from girls and boys come out to play to Enter Sandman.
Okay, very good. Thank you, guys.
And now we'll take our last question from Dave Metzer from Yahoo Sports. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is for Dana and Lorenzo. Dana, a month or so ago, or a little longer, you had talked to me about the idea of maybe doing two shows on the same night, and maybe the night of the Fox shows, and kind of like for next year, like where do those plans stand? Are you going to be doing double headers where one leads to a pay-per-view, or is that maybe not happening so quick?
I'll let Lorenzo take that one. That's his international world. Let him tell you about that one.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's certainly not something that is in our plans. We toyed around with the idea because originally we had secured a date in Tokyo with the Saitama Super Arena for a pay-per-view, and Fox had come to us with a potential date for a live show in prime time, and we were just trying to make it all work together and see if we could do it. To the credit of our production team, we kind of threw it at them, and they said, as they usually do, yeah, no problem, we can figure this thing out. We felt like that by having both events kind of not simultaneous, but one lead into the other would create, a lot of buzz and press just around that, because I don't think anybody's really done that yet. But with that said, that's no longer happening. It's not something that we're necessarily looking to do. But, we just kind of challenged ourselves to figure out if we could pull it off, and the answer is yes, we could. But once again, no, there's nothing in the plans to do that right now.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks.
Okie-doke.
Okay, well, that's the last question. We appreciate everybody joining us today.